Okay, great.
And then, of course, the follow-up questions at the end.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. So Brandy New popped in and added a comment saying that all of today's sessions are going to be uploaded to YouTube for anybody that misses them. And I'm also going to send my presentation out as well, because I've embedded some links to some how-to videos and some Screencastifys. So I'm going to drop that into the comments later. But for now, we can go ahead and get started. I see some more people have come on. So if you're just now jumping on, could you please make sure your mics are muted and your cameras are off, just so it doesn't mess with loading. There'll be a link at the end for you to sign in to get your PD credit. So one of the main tools that I'm going to be talking about is Screencastify. That is something that I used a lot during NTI. Whenever I first started using it, or before I started using it, I was actually kind of nervous to use it because I was like, oh, that sounds like high-tech stuff. So I was kind of nervous to talk about or use Screencastify. And then I downloaded it and I started like playing around with it, and I got really comfortable with it. And I got so comfortable with it that I now have 2 levels of certifications with Screencastify. I'm like a master genius or something like that with Screencastify. So I know a lot about it. Ways that I used it a lot for NTI was recording lessons, showing students how to maybe use a website that we hadn't used a lot before we started NTI, or also individualized lessons. And what I mean by individualized lessons is like, I'm a math teacher, so there would be times where I would do a lesson and maybe not go as slower or as in depth. So I would have some students email me saying, can you go over this with me again? Or can you explain this a different way? So that's where I would create those individualized lessons so I could work with that student slower or using different methods. And it's great for online learning because you're recording what you're you can show yourself, you can talk, you can show your screen, kind of like how I am with this Google Meet. You can do that with Screencastify, and it's pre-recorded, and it's great for online learning because you can send it out in Google Classroom. You can put it into Google Forms so that kids can watch a video and answer some questions. And then you can also use it for feedback. My example that I have whenever I think of online feedback is like in English or ELA, that maybe a teacher is going to assign a writing assignment and they want to give individualized feedback on each student's work. So for me, thinking of online feedback, that teacher could be recording their screen and going through that paper, giving ways to edit or improve their paper, and then they can send it to a student and it would be there so they could have that one-on-one kind of, not really conversation, but have that feedback for them.
Miss Rakes, this is Miss Macy. I wanted to share one of the things that I noticed some students wanting to do. We would upload these beautiful lessons and Screencastifys that we've done, and then they would contact us and no doubt have a question that they obviously didn't watch the Screencastify. So oftentimes I would put in at different times in my Screencastify like a secret word or like a secret question, I would call it. And when students would contact me and I could tell right away they probably had not watched the lesson, I would ask them that, and they would, oh, wait a minute. And then they would admit that they had not watched it. So you may want to find some little tricks, because there's not a way to be able to tell who has watched them and who hasn't, but you just might want to come up with a little way so that way they can you can ensure that they're watching it. And a lot of times I had a couple kids that were like, can I pick the secret question? They thought that was really funny too. So just different ways to keep them engaged with it.
Yeah, I know there were times like I would post a Screencastify lesson and I would give like a Google form for them to answer some questions. And I would always have a kid say, well, I don't understand how to do this. How do you do this? And my first question would be, did you watch the video? Yeah, I watched it. Well, I started using that secret code because like using like my word of the day is like
Yes.
blue elephant or something like that, just so I knew that they watched it.
Yeah, because this is essentially your direct instruction. So when you're providing these Screencastifys, you can use these as that direct instruction. So if there is a student who prefers to maybe works better at 7 o'clock at night, they have access to your direct instruction because obviously they won't have access to you at 7 o'clock at night. So that's a great use of that.
So I see Brandy is asking for my slides. I was going to post it at the end, but I'll go ahead and do it now. I'll copy this link.
No, sorry to be bossy. Just anytime you can do it. Sorry.
You're fine. I'll do it now just so I don't forget about it.
Thanks,
All right, there it is. So next thing, so how we used it, I'm a regular education teacher. Like I said, I teach math. And then Miss Macy is a special ed teacher, and she does math too, but she's the special ed teacher for math. So like I said before, I have recorded lessons, showed examples, created how-to videos, and then I'll let Miss Macy talk about how she did it for special education students.
For the special ed students, I actually created a separate Google Classroom that was kind of their own space where they could get in contact with myself or Miss Rakes or the other 6th grade math teacher. And we could kind of talk within that classroom. Within that classroom, I also would post separate Screencastifys that would provide a little bit more instruction maybe than what they were getting through Miss Rakes's Screencastifys. A lot of times if our students who get, for example, get access to calculators, but the general ed students didn't have access to calculators, I would do a separate Screencastify and show them how to use like the online calculator site that's called Desmos. And I would actually model how to use Desmos and maybe do some more sample questions with them within that separate Screencastify. That was a great thing for us to be able to model that. I also used it to model the IXL work that we required of them. Sometimes in IXL, when you get to a certain point, like a certain SMART score, the questions do get more difficult. And so those students needed those extra supports when they got to those questions. So I would model that within my Screencastify.
Let me unmute myself. I have bad allergies. I've been coughing a lot too. So like Miss Macy said, like she made those separate Screencastifys, which I think is awesome. Like I would send her what I would be doing, and then she would take what I was doing and make it just for those kids. She would modify it to meet their needs, which I think is fabulous. So on this next slide, I'm actually going to walk you through how to download the Screencastify extension on your Chrome browser if you don't already have it. If you have the slideshow, like if you've opened that link, there, this setup, you have your step 1, you can click that Chrome web store and it takes you, and then you can search, or if you just click directly on that add Screencastify extension, it should take you right to that extension. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to share this tab. So now you should be able to see my web store, and I already have it downloaded, but if you don't have it added to your Chrome browser, there's like a add to Chrome button that's here on this thing below Screencastify. So if you don't have it, I suggest you get it, and you add it to Chrome. And then it'll ask you like permission to download, add it to your Chrome browser. So you'll want to do that. And then logging in, I believe you can log in with Google.
Mhm.
I've
Yes.
been on, I don't know, I've been logged into Screencastify for like 4 months now. So,
Yeah, it'll log in through your Google login. You can use
okay, so you can log in with Google. That's what I do for everything, so I don't have to remember passwords. And then something that I know that we have now, anybody like for Hardin County schools, you get unlimited access. Whenever we started NTI, we like I got the free trial or the free version, and you were limited on how long your videos were, and you were limited on the amount of videos that you could make. But for Hardin County, we have unlimited now. So your videos can be however long you want them. You can have however many you want. So I think that's awesome.
I would suggest when you do your Screencastifies, keep them about the length that you would do direct instruction. Usually for the kids, I usually try to do 12 to 15 minutes. You can always pause it in the middle of the Screencastify too, and Ms. Rakes may show that in a second, where, you know, if something happens in the middle of you recording that, you can pause it and then come back to it. So if you get like 8 minutes in and something happens and you're like, oh, I don't want to record all 8 minutes again. If you just pause, you can always come, it'll pick you right back up. But I do suggest keeping those, you know, I wouldn't make like 30-minute Screencastifies. I mean, there may be cases where that's good, but I would keep it manageable so the kids can, you know, make it through it without pausing you. But that would be more like the 15 to 20, 12, 15, 20-minute range.
Definitely. I use that pause function a lot because I have a 3-year-old. So during NTI, I would be recording videos and she would be running around or over here like, play with me. And so I used that pause feature a lot.
Yeah.
I see we have a question. It only works with the Chrome browser. So that is something as far as having the extension. And I know it will not work on an iPad because you have to have the Chrome browser. So that is a good question. So there's this link here, how to use the Screencastify video. And I did a trial run myself. Like I opened up a Google Meet earlier and I opened up Screencastify and my computer started freezing. So I'm going to try to show you a part of this video about the pause feature and all of that. So hopefully we shouldn't have to watch too much of this. So let me share my other tab. And so this, I made this back in March, I think, probably like late March. And I was just doing it on iExcel just because that was something that I used a lot. So I'm going to play this on paper, on a whiteboard, whatever you have. The other thing I like about Screencastify is that there are also like drawing tools down here at the bottom. So if you look down here in your bottom left corner of the screen, there's a pause recording, there's the mouse pointer. It tells you exactly what it is. So like this, you can do a focus mouse, so it's like a little light on your screen. You can turn that off. You have a pen, which I have a touch screen computer, so I have like a little stylus pen that I use. But you can also use your finger if you have a touch screen computer, or you can use your mouse pad. I'm going to use my mouse pad just for this first example. So if we're talking about inequalities, I would put 4 in for y. See, I don't like using that mouse pad. I'm going to use this. So we're going to put 4 in for y, and then we have less than 8. So you can use that to draw on your screen if you have a touch screen computer. You can use your mouse pad, or if you have like a actual mouse, that might work better because you have better control of the actual mouse. And then like, see how I've got my little pen? Well, I can't click on any of my answers. So I have to go back to my mouse, and then 4 is less than 8. So that would be a yes. So then submit. And then if I want to erase anything, there's your eraser here. You can erase things by themselves, or you can click this and it wipes the entire screen. And then if you want to pause recording, which I'm going to do here in just a second, and I'm going to switch screens. But if you want to pause recording, you can pause, So if you have to switch screens, or if you have to like maybe not show an answer to something and you want to pause, you can pause your recording. So I've paused. I'm still on my screen, but I had to answer a student question. So you can look, like once you stop recording, it'll take you to a new screen where you can trim your recording, and I will insert a screenshot into the presentation. But here are all of my recordings that I have done so far. I have showed students how to do a Google Hangout. I have showed them how to do their IXL, do breakouts, do Quizizz, IXL, a lot of IXL. I showed a teacher how to use the snip tool that is on your computer, which is up here. And I also used the Google Hangout for a couple of teachers who didn't know how to use Google Hangout. So I've also used it that way. And then I am actually a master Screencastifier, and I had to make a little video for Screencast to get a little badge. So on my email, I have a little badge. It's kind of cool. So like I said, I just showed the video because that was easier, because I noticed earlier whenever I ran through this myself, my computer froze up really bad. So I didn't want that to happen in the middle of a presentation. So I am going to kind of go back over that just a little bit. Whenever you want to start a Screencastify, and once you have it on your Chrome browser, it will be up here in your top right-hand corner. So if I hover over this, it's like that little pink arrow with a little video clip in it. So anytime you want to start a recording, which I'm not going to, because like I said, it'll probably freeze. But this little menu will pop up. Maybe, yeah. And then you have your microphone option and your webcam option. You can show yourself kind of like how I was in that video. You can move yourself around the screen. So if you're blocking something, you can move out of the way. You don't have to show yourself because kids, just need your voice. But I always like to show myself because I know a lot of kids want to see their teacher and feel like they're more engaged, I guess, if they can see you. And then you can just do a browser tab, or you can do your entire desktop. That just kind of depends on you. I kept it on my desktop for some things because I would switch back and forth between tabs a lot. So rather than hitting like stop recording on this tab and start a new recording on another tab, I just kept it up on my desktop. And then you just record, and then all those little options show up on the bottom like that that were in the video. So
this is also a great way for special ed teachers if you want to, if you're doing something that requires a reader and you have a, let's say it's a passage that you're working on with students and you want to record yourself reading it, that would be a nice way to do that. We, at Bluegrass, we've got some different ways that we utilize us reading using technology, but Screencastify is another great option for this, so that you can, and they can see you, you can video yourself recording and have the passage up in front of you, and then they can read along. You could even highlight as you go along and be able to kind of engage that with them. They could read along with you. If you didn't want to just do that maybe on a Google Meet, but you wanted it to actually be recorded, so they could do it at their own time.
That is a good point. So I have some important notes. I'm not going to read those word for word just because you can read. And I think I've went over most of this stuff anyways. Like I said before, it will not work on an iPad because it's a Chrome extension. So you do need to have a Chrome browser. If you do not have if you don't use a Chrome browser, you need to. Once you stop recording your Screencastifies, it actually makes a folder in your Google Drive. So I'm going to show you mine. All of your videos will save to your Google Drive. So as you can see, maybe if it will load. I don't know. There we go. Oh, okay. So it saves all your videos in one place. I name all of my videos for the most part so I can keep myself organized. Because if I was uploading something to Google Classroom and I wanted like my day 27 median, talking about median, I would want that rather than talking about mode. So just for my own purposes, I would rename those for organization purposes. But I mean, if you don't want to name your stuff, that's fine. So I have like a Google Hangout, how to do that. I have my Screencastify master badge video that I had to do. I've got IXL videos. I've got breakout videos. It was just a lot of how-to videos, I guess, plus instruction.
Some
So,
people
like,
may
here-
want to. Some people may just want to put the date on it as well, because you may just want to keep a log of this is what I did on, August 30th. This is what I did on September 5th. That way, if you had, maybe someone who's absent, they could go back and watch that. You could always use just your dates if that, just whatever system works best for you.
Yeah, I feel like especially if you start using Screencastify, maybe beginning of the year, like if you want to do like a blended classroom or something, I would put the dates. But I would also I would put like rather than day 29 range, I would put August 27th range or whatever my date would be, just so I know what day that was covered.
Yeah.
Because my plan for the school year was to do like instruction videos for kids who may have been absent and posting them on Google Classroom rather than doing like notes or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what I was going to do. I was going to make my regular classroom more of like a blended classroom so they could still have those instruction videos. And some people would say, oh, well, that's kind of a lot extra. It is, but I'm comfortable enough with my content now. This will be my third year in 6th grade math. So I'm more confident with my content now versus, first year 6th grade math. So I feel like now I would have had, like now is a better opportunity for me to do that versus first or second year.
As we're sitting here doing this just came to me, and I don't, feedback on this would be great if you want to put something in the chat box, like you think this could be done a bit different way or any suggestions. You could really use this if you were doing station teaching, that you could make a Screencastify for each station that allows you maybe to give more instructions or to model what they need done. That way, if you have several stations, of course, there's maybe only one of you or two of you in a classroom, you can't get to all stations. This might be a neat way to use that. Again, that just like as you're explaining that kind of came to me. So maybe we could work that in, Rakes.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I kind of thought of that. I was like, we could maybe.
Yeah,
we could maybe try that.
I like that. So if anybody has a co-teacher or if they do station teaching or they do stations, there's you an idea.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
So like I said, everything goes to Google Drive, everything saves. Whenever you do stop a recording, you can trim it. Like if you have some dead space in the beginning, you can trim that off. You can save it differently. And then I'm going to show a Google form really quick because I mentioned where you can put a Screencastify into a Google form. So here's one. Let it switch over. Here is one that I used during NTI. I did this to get a badge to get my free Chromebook from the board. So I did this to get a badge. It was just doing a Google form and put a video and sending it to Brandy. But I made a Screencastify on mode. And I mentioned earlier that you can embed them into a Google form, but you have to upload it to YouTube first. Just for whatever reason, whenever you go to make a Google form, it wants a YouTube link. So you have to do that. But you can make it like if you just use like your Hardin County website or your Hardin County email and like open up YouTube, sign in that way. You can make it to where nobody else can see your video like on YouTube. You can make it unlisted so nobody can like find you unless you just want it that way. But you can embed them by adding a link onto your Google form. So I have it here and then they can watch the video and then answer the questions while they're watching the video rather than having 2 tabs. I'm all about simplicity. I like as much stuff like on one tab as possible rather than having a ton of tabs. So that is good to have that in there.
Yeah. And I don't know, I don't know if we mentioned this, but remember all your Screencastifys can be uploaded right to your Google Classroom. So everything can quickly be uploaded into your just, everyday Google Classroom that you use. So that can be where you keep them organized as well.
For sure. So we're gonna switch off of Screencastify for a minute because that's what we've talked about for almost 30 minutes now. But it's a really good tool. I love Screencastify. It's fabulous. So we're gonna switch gears just a little bit. And I think this is probably, Macy, I think might be where you come in more so than me.
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna need to share my screen. So let's see if it'll let us do that. Hope so.
I can stop.
I can present my screen. You're good. Looks like, yep, said I can share now. We are good. And sharing. Okay. All right. At this time, you all should see just like a white piece of paper with some math on it. Is that what you see? Ms. Rakes, is that what you see?
Yes, I see your screen.
Okay, good. Okay, so I do, as a special ed teacher, I do a lot of one-on-one work with students. And I learned quickly in doing NTI, the student would be at their home and they would be working on a problem. And they would try to take their notebook piece of paper and hold it up to the camera and be like, see, look at my work, Miss Macy. And I'm like, I can't see anything. It was just not a great system at all. So I had another teacher who introduced me to using the whiteboard apps that we have. There's 2 that I've used. I tended to use bit paper more than the AWWA app that I'll show you as well. The reason I really like these is that this is just like having your board in your classroom, and you have the ability to collaborate with your students. So this right here, I did in the presentation, that the slides that Ms. Rakes will send you, there is a video link in there. I did a Screencastify on how to use this with a student, and my daughter actually modeled being a student, and it will show you how when the student's at one location and you're at another, that you can still work together with the screen. You could even do groups of students if you wanted to. You can collaborate with one or several. It's all up to you and how your classroom management and what groups you want to work with. But when you hit the collaborate over here, it gives you a URL that you can then cut and paste, and I emailed that to the student. So they would get this in their email, and when they clicked on it, it would give them access to this bit paper. From there, we would then begin working together. So in blue, you'll see that is what I wrote down as the teacher, and what is in black is what the student showed me. So the student and I were working on solving one-step equations, and I was able to see their work in real time doing so. You'll notice they went and substituted their answer back in. Again, they used the little erase feature and erased the X and then wrote in their 6 that was there. During this, I do want to say that it's best to be Google meeting with that group. I started my Google Meet, and then we went into the bit paper. That way we're able to talk back and forth and be able to share the work on the whiteboard screen. So this is one way. Now you get a blank screen, or you can also upload worksheets to this. So I'm going to go down and show my other math example. This is a worksheet that I uploaded, and then students were able to work on this. Again, we worked over here on how to compare decimals. A way to upload this worksheet is that you go to this little file here. And again, this is all in the the video that will be shared on the slide. If you hit the upload files, this will take you to, I have a folder that was NTI worksheets. So this had all my NTI worksheets that my students received. So they had a paper copy in front of them at home. And then I save these on my computer. So if you click on one of those and hit open, then that will, I'm going to go ahead and do it while we're on here. So let's just do converting fractions. So if you hit open, and you'll see the worksheet will pop up over in this left screen. It's going to take a second. Okay, and this is all the pages. And then you can upload your pages. So you can bring them over. You can drag them over and drop them. It takes a few minutes. Okay, you can drag those over, and then you can hit the arrow, and that will remove that screen. You can make it bigger and smaller, so forth. You can move it over if you need more space. And then you can work with students and have that work right in front of you. And again, they're going to be logged into this as well, so they can show you their work on this screen as well. The other, now I've showed you two math examples, a reading example that you could use. So this is all my worksheets, okay? Notice over here on the side, this is the different pages that it will give you access to. You could do a reading example. For instance, on this one, this was a proofreading ELA example. So you could have the student who could mark this up while you are watching and giving feedback to them on their work and have that conversation. You could have several students that are in this classroom that are doing that as well and working together on the whiteboard. These all can be saved, so you can save these and bring them back up at a later time. I also want to show you the this site as well. This is the other whiteboard app that I've used. I've not used this one as much. This one is new to me. I'm trying to just kind of know the different ones in case one decides not to work on me. I've got to back up. But this is similar in that it has the tools on the side that you can use. I like to use one color for the teacher and one color for the student, let them pick what color they want. And that way we can kind of distinguish between each other's work when we're on there. Again, if you want to, you can have a plain whiteboard, or you can upload a document. On this app, you use the plus and go to a PDF file, and it takes you to your files. And you can choose your, so if I wanted to work on median with students, I could bring up the median. It's loading. And again, we could work on the side here. So I could have them, I could say to my student, I need you to order the numbers that you have. And again, you can make this bigger. You can push in. You can draw it in, and it will allow you to order those numbers, and the student could continue to work from there. These can all be saved again. So if you want to go back and use those, you can. Are there any questions on that? Let's see, are there any? Did anybody use anything other than those two apps that they want to share out? I'd like to learn if there's any other ones that you all used to work with students. Please feel free to share, because I'm wanting to learn as many of these as I can.
If you scroll down on your chat, someone asked a question about bit paper being used in real time, or could you use it on a Screencastify?
On a Screencastify. I did use on Screencastify with my students. So when I was creating a Screencastify, so I'll go back, let me go back to my bit paper, since that's the one I'm more comfortable using. When I go down here, let's say I'm doing a Screencastify on comparing decimals. So I've started recording my Screencastify, and I open bit paper, and in my bit paper, I insert my worksheet, or if I'm just giving direct instruction and I just want to teach them something brand new, I could go back to my bit paper. Okay. We can erase everything. And I could go and teach directly from there. So I could give direct instruction. Let me get down there. I could give in direct instruction right here on this screen. So this can be basically my board as I'm teaching them. So if I'm doing a new lesson on solving two-step equations, I could use my board and I could bring right up on the board. And from there, I could continue my instruction and I could talk them through how I want them to solve this. So yes, you can use this within Screencastify to be like your board, just like you would in your classroom. That's a great question. And that I use that like that quite a bit, a lot when I was showing students new skills. I'm going to show you my classroom. This was my resource classroom that I had during NTI. So anything that says lesson, that was a Screencastify. So underneath, I would have a Screencastify. Either it would be over the IXL or it would be over the worksheet. Then I would post the IXL work with the link, which I know we're going to go over IXL a little bit in a second. And it would give them the direct link to the IXL. And then I would have them, they would have the worksheet that they had at home. Now, some of you may not, maybe fully on, and you don't want to, have them have paper at home. That's understandable. During this time, we were having packets sent home. So that was one of the ways I used the Screencastify in addition to the bit paper to be able to reach my students. Let's see, any other questions? Jamboard, yes, I've heard about Jamboard, and that is the next one that I'm going to try to familiarize myself with. Yeah, it's good to have something, and if you get in with a program, these are just ones that I used that, I got exactly when you get into something that you're comfortable with. What's great about these is that we can use these in real time with our students. I loved being able to work with them right then and there and see them do the work. And for them to be able to show me exactly what they're doing and show each other. That was a really big thing. I had a couple girls that worked on problems, and they would show each other, no, wait, try it this way. And it was amazing that they could just jump on at their house, and we had this right at our hands. So yes, any system that you find, I just highly recommend using something like this. And you could even, I think for those, if they're not doing online, you could use this in your classroom, because you could easily have your screen and then the kids in your class could all be on bit paper, and you all could be showing each other. That way you're not having to walk around and see their go up to their desks, since we're technically supposed to be social distancing. So I think this will be something a lot of people can use.
I also think, like, this just came into my mind, like if you wanted students to work together, you could also like have the student, like they could share a whiteboard and they could work together, and then they could, work out the problem together, or they could, whatever you used it for. Like that just came into my mind, that they could work together.
And that way they're not switching papers. You can, they're not switching. At one time, bit paper was free. They had opened it up to everybody. It'd be great if we had access to something a little bit more unlimited. It was under $10 that I got a subscription for myself that allowed me to have access to more paper. But I really have not found myself going through that much, because you can just go through and delete what on those, like the ones I had up, you can go through and delete off of what you have here. So it, you can use it that way. So
the basic plan is $8, and you get 20 papers a month.
Yeah.
So.
And it's, I mean, you don't really go through those that fast, especially if you reuse paper, recycle.
See, I was wondering if you could reuse it and not count against your paper count. So that's good to know.
Yeah, you can make your. Any other questions regarding any of those whiteboards? And thank you for those who shared out the ones they're using. I'm going to go check those out too. Thank you. All right.
I know,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I know, like whenever I was recording Screencastify, I would just open a blank Google Doc and I would just write on it. But I have my touch screen laptop, so I would just use my little stylus and I would write on my blank Google Doc as like my whiteboard. So if you're looking for, I mean, I've never used Jamboard or Padlet, but if you're looking for just a plain white background, free white background that you want to use for Screencastify, you could open a Google Doc and just write on that, because that's what I did. But I plan on using this bit paper for real time is what I want to use it for. So,
all right. I'm going to move to IXL. I'm going to, do you want me to continue to keep my screen up, Ms. Rakes?
You can.
Yeah, okay.
I think IXL is going to be the last thing, and then because we're getting short on time.
Yeah, I'll show that. Okay, moving off of the whiteboard, one of the other things we wanted to show you all that was helpful during our NTI was IXL. I don't know if you all want to comment in the chat box how many of you all had access to IXL and how many of you all used it. IXL for me was great in the aspect that there was a live classroom that we could watch, basically. So, and I had used this prior to NTI and just continued with it. That way I could see what my students were doing, especially during lab time, and I could pick up on anything that they were not doing well on. Obviously, when you'll see my screen appear, it's all zeros because there's no students on working. But during the time when I click on live and go to live classroom, it will tell me the students that are working, and it will tell me exactly which of the IXL programs they are working on. It will warn me if a student is not doing so well. And then it will also tell me if you have that student that's kind of not paying attention anymore, and it will tell them that you are idle, and that will draw your attention to them as well. For IXL, I use the live along with the Google Meet and along with the bit paper when I was working with students. So I had students that would be on their IXL, and if they'd be working, and I would just let them work quietly, and then if I saw they had an issue, we would stop and we would bring the problem up on our screen. I would share my screen and show them. They were like, oh, you can really see what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, sure can. And then we would move over to the bit paper, and we would then work on those problems. And that way, instead of letting them just continue to get problems wrong, one after another, and then they watch their SMART score just go down, and then they get frustrated, seeing it in real time and being able to troubleshoot that right away worked really well with a lot of the students. They were able to just continue, they'd fix their mistakes, and then they could continue on. Having that Google Meetup obviously gave us the ability to have conversations. Did anybody answer if they have been using? Yes, Regina. Yes, definitely. I think IXL has been a really, really good. It's kind of interesting because in IXL, a lot of kids are like, oh, IXL, because if you miss one, that SMART score starts to go down, and then they get a little nervous, like, oh no, I'm not going to get to my 80 or 85, whatever you've told them they have to get to, and they start to get anxious. But the feedback that we get as teachers in the room with the analytics section is just it's just wonderful, and our school has used this a lot for us to be able to troubleshoot those kids. I don't want to necessarily go into student quick overview. It would show students' names, and I don't want to disclose those at a time. But I do like, I'm going to go into the trouble spots. That was a good one for me. And I love how it shows you the questions. It'll show you exactly the question you'll get wrong. So when you go back over it with a student, they're like, oh yeah, I remember missing that. And you can talk about what was your thinking at that time, and then hopefully correct that thinking so they won't get it wrong again. So in our trouble spots, course, no one, oh, it's going to show, it will show you those specific questions that students are having trouble with. I think this is valuable information because if you have several students, obviously this says ways to help 10 or more students at once. If you have several students, then you can all get together on this question and do a lesson quickly on that to hopefully troubleshoot some issues that they are having in there as well. So we used a lot of that in our iExcel. Lydia or Ms. Rakes, do you have anything to add to your iExcel? Is there any other section I should show? Let me know if there's.
I think those are the main ones for as far as tracking students' progress, like live progress and the trouble spots.
Yeah, the live to me was just the best because some like I've used Khan in the past, and I still use Khan, but that real time when we're working with them, I think that's the best use of our time because I hate for students to be doing things wrong and then get to the end and we're like, oh, they did all that wrong, or they're not understanding. I like to get on it right as they are having the issues. So you can also go through on your skills, on the questions, and you can go through on your grade level. I've used this too. And so if we're working on exponents, specifically this skill, I can pick a student and we can go through Brandon. He is not in that grade anymore. So let's go up a grade and we can work on, come up on that. Right. So we can use our, scroll down here again. So we can go through and see, what questions specifically did he have trouble on? Also, how long did they spend on questions? That was always a good one to use too. Because I had a few kids that would tell me, I don't understand, but they'd spent 1 minute. So having that time stamp on there too is kind of nice to have, so how long they're taking on that. He was doing well. This particular student was doing well on his integers, and I could see his answers versus what the correct answer was. So that was great. That was awesome there too. All right, Ms. Rakes, anything else on there that you like, that you used?
I think that was it as far as I know. Yep. So we are almost out of time. So if you have looked at the presentation the Google Slides that I shared with you, you will see that there is a slide about important links. And those important links are Screencastifys that I have made and that Miss Macy has made. How to use Screencastify, how to embed a video into a Google form, how to start a Google Meet, which I think we all know how to join Google Meets, but starting one, maybe my video about starting a Google Meet is how to start it from Google Classroom, and then also how to start it from just a browser. How to use Quizizz. I used that a lot during NTI, and I plan to use that a lot in the future. And then Miss Macy made one on BitPaper and the other paper app that she showed. Mm-hmm. So if you've looked at this, I want you to just take a couple minutes, and I want you to add the Screencastify extension to your Chrome browser, and then sign up, log in with your Hardin County email so that you get the unlimited. And then I want you to sample Screencastify by making a 1 to 2 minute video. It doesn't need to be long. You can send it to someone, or you can share it with us. It doesn't really matter. And then we will take these last 10 minutes to answer questions or hear from you if you have suggestions. And then also don't forget to sign in on that Google form. It is currently the last comment in the chat box.
Yes.
So just make sure you sign in on that. And then also just make sure that I want you to add that Screencastify extension if you've not used it, because I think it's a great tool to use, whether for NTI or if you want to do blended instruction this year, or maybe you're going to, you're going to try something new, I want you to just take a minute or two to make a quick screencast. It could be something on how to make a Google Doc, how to type on a Google Doc, how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whatever. Just show us a screencast.
Can you repost? Did you see the comment, the chat,
Yeah.
Ms. Rakes? Okay.
I'll copy it. Copy. Oh no. Maybe.
I like Screencastify a lot because it shares pretty much everything on your screen. So when you're able to show students, if it's a technology like IXL, or it's a bit paper, or it's a worksheet, or it's a video, you can bring so many things up. I mean, it's basically sharing your entire computer with the students, and for them to be able to see. A lot of kids are visual, and they hear and see what it is that you're requiring of them, and I think a lot of them really enjoyed that.
They did. I got a lot of good feedback from kids whenever they would see, because I asked my students in Google Classroom, how did they like it? Did they like seeing me? Did they like hearing me? What could I have done differently? Your students will be honest with you. They will be more than honest with you. So if you're looking for feedback on a tool that you've used, I suggest asking your students, because they will tell you. They will be honest, and I think that's just something you want to make sure that you're meeting your needs of your students. So I always ask them for feedback on how could I make a lesson better, or what could I do differently.
Are students able to use the Screencastify? Are they able to download? I don't know if that's a brand new question. Because that would be kind of cool if they could be able to make presentations and share out with each other. I'm just saying that would be kind of a neat thing to use. I don't know.
They could use FlipGrid for that. I mean, it's a shorter presentation, but they could use FlipGrid.
Yeah, they could use it.
So does anybody have any questions? There were some things that we didn't talk about that were on the presentation, like the Desmos calculator, of course, Google Classroom, Google Form. I just mentioned FlipGrid. There's Edpuzzle. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, Desmos is a wonderful tool. I'm going to, while they're doing that, I'll bring that up on there because we still have a few more minutes. For those who have, Ms. Rakes, there we go, I'll present. I'm going to bring that Desmos up because, a lot of these kids, they don't have the kind of calculators at home that we have, that we provide to them at school. And so this Desmos is a great way to get them, they have that technology right in their hands. We use Desmos a lot. Now, when you go into Desmos, I'm going to actually cancel out, and I'm going to start. So when I go to desmos.com, and it has different types of calculators that you can use on there. So you can use a standard calculator, graphing calculator. They've got the different 4-function, etc. Of course, for middle school, we use the scientific. So when you bring that up, it will allow them to do their math. So if you're, and I walk them through doing fractions. So a lot of times when I'm in the classroom, I'm teaching students how to use the ABC button for them to input their fractions. Well, on Desmos, it's just an AB button. So if they're putting in the fraction 2/5 to AB over 5 plus, excuse me, let me go back one. And then you put your arrow to the side, plus 1 AB 2, and the answer comes up over here. And then I show them that when they hit this little circle here, it converts their decimal answer to a fraction answer, so they can move that back and forth. I provided a Screencastify to show my students how this works, and we use this a lot when they were doing their IXL and doing their worksheets, because they didn't have the kind of calculators at home, you know, and even on their cell phones, they didn't have the calculators that would do that. So Desmos is a great tool for your students. And I would have a link in my Google Classroom that allows them to get to Desmos. I'm going to stop presenting now, Rakes.
All right.
To you.
I quit presenting already, so.
No.
If anybody wanted the link to the Google slide and you didn't maybe get it earlier, I'll go ahead and post that again because there are some embedded videos there that you can look at. There's some Screencastify videos on tools that we've used, and then there's some videos on how to use Screencastify. So.
And thank you for joining us. I mean, I'm glad. I appreciate you guys sharing your information in the chat, and you know, feel free to email us if you have any questions or you find something that you're like, hey, I bet Stephanie would enjoy looking at that. Feel free to email me with anything that you find, because I think right now it's kind of good. We're all sharing fun stuff that we found and stuff that's useful in the classroom. So we appreciate you guys.
I try not to spend my entire presentation on Screencastify, but I mean, I think it's great. You can use it for NTI, you can use it distance learning, you can use it in the classroom. So there are a lot of different ways to use it, and as well as some of the other tools that we mentioned. I could talk for hours about technology.
Well, thank you very much. I think the next one starts at 1:30. So
yeah, so make sure you fill out that Google form. It's posted up above. And then there's the YouTube link to where you can see all the meets later, and then also the Google slide. So
awesome. Thank you, Ms. Rakes.
Thank you, Miss Macy.
Bye.